Hello, darling mortals. It's Mirabelle again, here to guide you through life's thornier moments. Today's word of the day is a disappointment. It's an unwelcome guest who shows up uninvited, eats all your snacks, and leaves you questioning why you even throw parties in the first place. But do you know what I've learned? Disappointment is really just a plot twist that hasn't been resolved yet. Maybe your fairy godmother lost the invite. Maybe the dragon you're fighting is actually guarding something priceless. Or maybe, just maybe, you're the one who's about to rewrite this story entirely. So, mortals, here's your mission. Take that disappointment, fold it into a paper airplane, and send it flying straight into the sun. Or, if that's a bit too poetic for you, write the ending you want. Because stories, your stories, are magic. They're how we take the broken pieces and craft something extraordinary. Now, speaking of rewriting stories, let me tell you about today's guest. Chris Lilly is the kind of writer who doesn't just accept life's disappointments. Oh no, he turns them into art. His stories don't just mend plot holes, they rebuild entire worlds where magic, heartbreak, and triumph dance together, like it's the last waltz at a haunted ball. So light your candles, crack open your dusty tomes, and prepare yourselves for a masterclass in rewriting life's biggest plot holes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 6 of Aether and Ink. Aether and Ink. I don't even know what Ink means, but it's our new thing. We're trying it out. Aether and Ink, actually. So this week has been a little bit crazy, politically, socially, and globally, and otherwisely. So I think that one of the inspirations I had for this week was I kept hearing the word disappointment. And I thought about how in stories, writers often can talk about and readers can experience revisions that help us rewrite our stories so that the disappointments that we experience can be turned into a different, more life-changing experience. Anyway, to help me explain this better, we have Chris Lilly. Hello, Chris.
Hi. Sorry. I didn't know you were gonna. I didn't know you were gonna stop.
Oh yeah, no, that was just like I was like, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Just Chris does. We had a conversation about this. Help.
Hi.
Hi. Yes. So we had kind of talked about how because this week has been just kind of cray-cray. Like I really just want to talk about moonbeams and unicorns and have a good conversation today because yeah. Anyway, so I've got my unicorn mug.
I have magic. I have my magic mug.
You have your magic mug this time. Yay. I love it. You have a nice collection of mugs.
And I don't know how. It wasn't something that was planned. It wasn't like I was just wanting to get them or anything, but I think I'm starting to transition into tea world a little bit.
Ooh.
And so I've been kind of slowly noticing that for myself over the past year.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I just think kind of mugs comes next.
I wonder if it's like part of the like tarot collector starter pack. Like here, after your first 5 decks, you get a free mug. Maybe.
I wish that was the case, because if that's the case, I would have gotten so many mugs.
Oh my God. What is the total on your collection at this point?
I have about 80 decks.
I'm so envious.
Other people have, I don't want to say it's a competition, but whenever I told people I had 80 decks, they were always like wide-eyed and like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. But then I'm hearing I have 300. I'm like, oh, well, you beat me. Like,
Oh, I didn't know this, but yeah.
Like, I don't have room for 300, but
Right.
I don't, yeah, that. And so I'm just like, it sounds like I have a lot, but there are other people who are just who are even crazier than me.
They're even more prolific in their collections. I have maybe 10 decks, so I'm not even in the competition at this point. So you're a tarot reader, and you use tarot to help writers craft their drafts. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So the tarot is a storytelling tool, and some people don't actually know that. Some people actually think it's just divination, but there's actually a story woven within all of the cards, and depending upon how the cards are laid out, you can actually tell the story that way. So what I've done is, I actually didn't know this prior to getting into tarot. I actually was listening to a writing podcast, and the writing podcast, one of the podcasters said that when she has writer's block, she pulls out her tarot cards, and that's how I got 80 decks. But within that, once I started discovering spreads and the meanings of the cards and how you can actually invoke or evoke, or whatever word that is, you can actually bring out a lot of different characteristics from one card. So a lot of people will draw a card for inspiration of like, write a scene where you have two characters falling in love. Super cool. But I feel like that's just one prompt. And then it can bring up a lot of other things. But when you're looking at a tarot card, there are like 30 different things that you can get from one card, 30 different prompts. Part of that is, what do you hear, feel, taste, smell? What do you feel physically and emotionally? What happened prior to the card? What's happening on the card? What happens next on the card, or after the card happens? What's the environment? What are they wearing? What's the symbolism? Like, so there's just so many different ways that you can use tarot cards to just bring out your own intuition and your own creativity. And I think it's just supposed to, I feel like it helps a writer approach their writing from a more fun standpoint. Just sitting down in front of your computer and writing a scene and not knowing what's going to come out.
Right.
And there is funness to that.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of times, and this is myself included, sometimes I have a problem even just getting myself in front of the computer to even want to write. So this is kind of a back door in order to get your creativity going before you write one word. And it just it helps you kind of get into a little bit more of a flow, is what I feel.
No, I absolutely, like, it definitely, it's fun that there's an interactive element to writing at that point. And yeah, writer's block is a huge problem. I've used, not knowing which direction I want to take a scene, I've pulled a card on a couple of different, once or twice, and it's I love the more challenging cards that I get that don't seem to have any relevance to the story at that point. Then it's like, then it becomes like, a challenge, which is really, engaging for me as a writer. I want to be challenged to write something that, and segueing into this card that has nothing to do with the story so far, is like, and oftentimes it's the right card for the situation. Like, it's you're stuck for a reason. So the cards themselves, if you read them like as a divination tool, is trying to help you pull out what you want to say, and from your subconscious. So I really enjoy listening to you talk about tarot as it agrees with writing. It's so much fun. Would you like to pull a tarot card for today?
Sure. So I have a plethora of decks around me.
My God, plethora! Thank you for using that word.
We have decided to use the Wizard's Tarot for everyone today. She's got unicorns. I've got witches. We've got wizards. So we're just going to kind of see what happens, and we're going to pull a card and just kind of go from there. So just to let everyone know, prior to getting onto this call, I do a breathing exercise before I pull my own cards. And I breathe in for 5 counts, I hold for 5 counts, I breathe out for 5 counts, and I hold for 5 counts, and I do that 3 times. And I did that prior to getting onto the call. So I'm just allowing spirit, God, universe, intuition, whatever, to flow into whatever we're doing here. And that's what I would do prior to pulling a card. I did not shuffle them because I wanted to be authentic.
Love it.
And also, so yeah. And also we just decided to use the Wizard's Tarot right now. So
yeah, we did. I was like, you got a deck, and you're like, yes.
I've got all of them right here. I've got all. I did not mention I have the Titanic deck also around me.
Oh my gosh! Like from the movie Titanic, or from like
Not
the
a
actual?
movie.
No,
it's from an actual not actual historical, but from an artist who actually took the actual history of the story. If there is a Titanic movie deck, I would not mind buying that. But
that would be kind of cool, yeah.
But there is another deck too. This is actually version 2. Version 1 actually is more of a pip deck. And for those of you who don't know what a pip deck is,
I don't know what it is.
So a pip deck, there are decks of cards that look very similar to the cards that you play cards with. So instead it's like the 4 of swords, it just has 4 swords on it. Those are pip decks. And a lot of us don't like pip decks because I don't say a lot of us don't like them. I personally don't like them. I'm just going to say I don't like them because there's not a lot of imagery that you can draw out of from it. You kind of have to know the meaning of some cards. So
we have Benjamin Blue said, pip decks.
So the original Titanic one, I guess, is a pip deck or more of a pip deck, but this one has an image on all of them. But yeah, so okay.
What did we get?
We got the Empress reversed.
Ooh. Wow.
So for those of you who don't know, I approach the tarot a little bit more grounded than other psychics or mysticism people.
Cartomancers.
There you go. So I have a very grounded approach to the tarot. Very more in tune with yourself and how you connect to the universe, and basically how I connect to the universe. So with the Empress, she is the mother of the tarot. Mothers are traditionally they give birth. They are patient, they are loving, they are caring, they are willing to let things grow. They are allowing things to grow slowly because, when she's pregnant, when a mother is pregnant, it takes 10 months to have that child, have that being grow, and then I almost said release that being.
That being. I wish it was that simple. I release you.
But with the Empress in reverse, we've got blocked, delayed, healing, or internal energy. So in regards to this message that we've been talking about, like what you mentioned earlier with how all the things that have been going on and whatnot, I actually want to approach this card. How can we mother more of ourselves? And let's bring a little bit more mothering and patience with ourselves, caring to ourselves. And also that kind of goes into a good leeway into what we're going to be talking about today as well. So I am going to invite you, anyone watching this, if you are struggling with something that seems very masculine on the outside or even on the inside, I'm going to invite you to soften that up for yourself. Let's give ourselves a little bit more forgiveness and also approach our creativity from a space of healing. So that's how I'm going to approach that card with what we're doing here.
I like it. It's definitely in alignment with the kind of topic that was filtering through for me, which was disappointment. So I'm just going to give a quick shout out to everybody in the chat. Let's see here. We've got, guys have been chatty. So ML Claxon says, hello, everybody. Hello, ML. Always good to see you. And we have Benjamin Blue here today. Hello.
So Ben's my friend.
Ben's your friend. Okay.
I just told him about it, and he's the guy I tagged, and so he's joining us.
Okay, great. It was very nice to have you. We do this every Saturday. And we have all kinds of cool people show up. Hello back. Like Chris, for example. This is his second Aether and Ink podcast. First one we tried to we did an interpretation of my spread with your deck, and we wrote kind of an interesting little Christmas tale.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't do anything else with it.
Well, December was bonkers, so
yes. Oh my gosh.
we'll figure it out.
Benjamin says that I'd have so many mugs. If you got one for every 5 tarot decks, is that what that?
Yeah, that's what that was. That's what that was.
Does he is he one of the 300 collectors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. ML said that I am waiting for my reading coffee. Right. And then Turkish coffee grounds. Yes, you could. I bet you could even use like a tea leaf, almost a tea leaf style. Benjamin said tasseography, which I had to look up right quick, which is divination through like I think physical objects like tea leaves or yeah. Let me double check.
I went to Pagan Con last October, and I actually went to a panel about reading tea leaves and stuff.
Oh, cool!
Like, that was interesting. So
I had somebody insult me once by telling me that tea leaves were more accurate than I was. Like, that was funny but mean.
I mean,
but it's tasseography is just right quick. Any debris in a liquid debris in a cup like wine, coffee, ml for you, tea, anything like that.
Yeah.
Oh my, we gotta pull this one up. 470.
Oh my god! Wow, Ben, I didn't know you. Wow, you have a no. I told you he was in more of the higher end. People think I have a lot. I think I have a lot. I don't have as much as him.
I'm looking at my handful over here. Like I got more books than I do tarot cards. I'm not even gonna. I had to get rid of a lot of my books, unfortunately, when I moved. So. But someday, my Glamazon grandmother was also a tea leaf trader. Like
probably means reader.
Oh, I was like, was she out there being glam and trying?
Probably means reader.
I like this. I'm using that as a writing prompt now. Like grandma's gonna be like in the woods picking tea leaves for like knickknacks and stuff. But yeah, a tea leaf reader. Okay. Bethany Harris, hello. Just saw this on Discord. Welcome. I feel like I've been watching Kaufman's right now a lot because I've started greeting people by saying welcome, the same way that I greet. Like I'm just a clone of Kaufman over here.
I mean, you hang out with Kaufman a lot.
Yes,
so it makes a little.
It does make sense.
It makes sense you would bring on some of that because you're around it so much.
I've absorbed some of his energy into my presentation. Welcome. Hello, Bethany. Reader, prolific misspeller, but I love that visual. Grandma Thelma could sell ice to Eskimos. I love it. I love that it worked anyway. What's that? Koff has been great. Yes, Koff's great. We love Kaufman here at Aether and Ink. He's doing his critique show after this. So go check that out next. If you need something to do on this Saturday. But we were going to, I'm going to just circle back around to this idea of disappointment right quick. Disappointment. So what is like disappointment? Disappointment is a terrible, terrible feeling, like Mirabelle said. Disappointment for me, I always feel it kind of in my stomach. Like it's kind of like this expectation that you were going to get something or something was going to happen. Or something was expected usually, and then it didn't happen the way that it was supposed to. Oh wow, yeah, that card is really singing to me now. Like, oh yeah, you need to be nicer to yourself. I actually do it even when I was, when we're children and we don't get like the yellow ball out of the toy machine. It's like, oh my god, it's the end of the world. I don't think that ever goes anywhere. I think it just gets more sophisticated as our desires and wants become more sophisticated. But there's still that feeling of like, or maybe I just never grew up. I don't know. What do you think?
I think I feel it more in my chest. Yeah. I feel a lot of my emotions in my chest. Whatever it is, it's fear, it's anger, it's anxiety. I feel a lot of stuff in my chest. So there's a lot of heart chakra stuff that I probably need to release that I've been working on.
Yeah.
My Reiki healer told me that anything from like my third eye is completely open. I feel like my voice chakra is closed. But anything like down below, I'm just not stable. But yeah, I feel a lot of disappointment and a lot of feelings in my chest. So I don't know that I've ever really felt much in my stomach. I don't know that I want to. There's a lot of stomach aches that could happen there and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like,
yeah, your willpower can be very. I was doing like just kind of a self scan, like of my Reiki self scanning once, and it went over my stomach, and it was like, don't even bother. I was like, okay, yeah. But yeah, I think that it's interesting that I think it's interesting where people feel the same thing in different parts of where the disappointment comes from.
To circle it back around, I actually think that now that I've said all of that, I do think that part of that is I need to be more kinder to my own self and my own chakras.
Yeah.
With this Empress. Need to be more patient with my own self to release some of this stuff. And it's a constant reminder I have to get. I was on a call earlier and Ben actually, and he actually mentioned like, you're worthy, you can do it. And I'm like, yes, I need to keep remembering that I'm good. I'm okay. And so it's a constant thing that it's a lot of totally different stories, totally different subject, but a lot of trauma. So we're just gonna.
Yeah. Oh no, I think it all stems from that, right? And it's like a lot of being an adult seems like reparenting yourself in a lot of ways. Like, because I mean, sometimes we have to stop and be like, we have to mom ourselves and be like, sweetie, it's gonna be okay. Like, so you didn't get the yellow ball this time, but you got the blue one, and that's still cool. Even like, trying to like, we get so wrapped up in the emotional immediacy of things that we forget like parenting kind of comes from this place of like seeing things in a little bit more, a little bit, it's the first experience we have of somebody who's outside of ourselves, right? And it's the first reflection of ourselves, really. And the first opportunity to see ourselves the way somebody else sees us. So so being kind and patient and nurturing. I think nurturing really is the word that one resonated here. Nurturing with ourselves and being good to ourselves. And healing from. And I think that, just to skip ahead a little bit, but I think that the importance that comes from healing trauma is that we are no longer reacting to things that happened before in the present. We're no longer reacting in the present to things that happened before. Because if you have some sort of experience that hurt your feelings or that disappointed you, you start reacting that way to things that are happening now. And it might not deserve the same kind of attention or the same kind of reaction that you're giving it, but because you felt that way in the past, it keeps you holds you down, and it holds you back. And I think that's why coming out of this kind of like this being encased in this traumatic amber and coming out, like you're kind of a newborn too at that point, right? Like new skin, new ways of feeling things. And sometimes like the world can be a very frightening place if it's new to your experience. And it's easier sometimes to go back into that traumatized space because it feels comfortable and it feels safe.
Yeah.
The vulnerable thing is the brave thing, and the vulnerable is to be vulnerable and to come out of that. So I think that the Empress is like, and be nice to yourself while you're doing it, and remember to eat cupcakes. You're worthy. Exactly.
There's something about her having like sitting in the sunshine too. Just something about that as well. And also like with the cat.
Kitty.
I don't know. There's a little kitty on her lap. I don't know. Just kind of something to keep in mind.
This is a really pretty deck too. I think Ben said that as well. It's a very pretty deck. And he said that I see a lot in my buddy. I wish he could see. Aww.
He does. He sees a lot more in me than I see in myself. And I think that there's just some stuff that I'm still focusing on also with the writing that I'm trying to release from my own past kind of a thing. So, but
we all have first person.
Right now, I'm just going to lean on Ben a little bit, and I'm just going to a lot of people see a lot more in me than I think I have in me, but I am working through that.
That's good. And the most, I think that there's this thing where we've kind of been taught for some reason that ego is bad and pride is bad in a particular way. And sometimes, if you're a jerk about it, don't like, but I think that believing in yourself is a good thing. And I think that having confidence in yourself is a good thing. And some of us just didn't quite get the lesson when we were younger. So it's almost like it's that, again, it's stepping into this vulnerable place where it's vulnerable to feel like you're good enough to do something too. So, I mean, it's like, it's easier almost to set yourself up for disappointment and be like, I'm not going to be able to do that, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got some comments coming in. Bethany says that I have been guilt tripped in December because I was busy with other things at the beginning of January. I guilt tripped myself. Yeah, it's easy to get locked into that cycle of, oh, no, I didn't do this right. And then it's almost like this chaos. The chaos theory starts unraveling, and it's like the guilt trip for the guilt trip for the guilt trip. Like, I've experienced that too, that cyclical thinking is, oh, that's a dark one. ML says, I'm happy that I've been able to feel with Mother all around me these past few weeks. She knows that I miss her so much and that I need her now. Oh, I know. I'm so glad. You'll get there, Chris, Ben says. And yeah, able to feel your mother. I'm glad that you're able to, too. I know that it's been a hard time for you right now, and I'm really glad that she's been there to comfort you, ML. And Nil says, hello. Hello.
Hello.
We're talking about disappointment today and how to rewrite your disappointment.
Yeah, let's rewrite some of this stuff.
Let's get back. I had some lovely questions I had written up that I'm going to find right quick somewhere in this cacophony on my computer. It's around here somewhere. Okay, just really briefly, why do you think disappointment sticks with us so deeply? Is it the feeling itself, or is it the story that we attach to it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I feel, okay, we're gonna get really deep here really fast. I feel like when we have disappointment, I don't think that we are ever properly taught how to feel disappointment. So when we are learning how to actually feel about disappointment, we can actually learn how to release disappointment. So and because we attach ourselves to disappointment so much, I think that it's because we're holding on to something that we have not learned how to release. And that's it. And then it just piles up on each other. He didn't ask me out. I didn't get my first kiss. I didn't get into college. I didn't do this. This didn't happen. I didn't get the job. And it's just like all this disappointment, but you haven't been able to sit in disappointment to let the feeling be felt so that it can be released. And I'm not just saying this to you who's watching, listening. I'm saying this to myself as well.
Right. No, I got that. Yeah.
I feel like there were tools that I was not properly given as I was growing up. And I am slowly trying to unravel that onion as my adult self. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I think sometimes that the people who try to teach us don't always have the tools themselves. So we learn the same coping mechanisms that are broken or insufficient. And I think that, and also unpleasant. I mean, who doesn't want to avoid unpleasant emotions? You know, we were talking about even the physicality of disappointment and where we feel it. I mean, it's like stubbing your toe. You don't want to feel it. It sucks. It hurts, you know, and because for some reason, emotional pain can be pushed to the side. We do. And we don't, I think very much the only way through that kind of thing is actually to sit with it and to experience it. So yeah, it's not only the fear of experiencing the pain again. I would say, like you said, it is just being untrained almost in how to sit with disappointment and how what the natural cycle, birth, you know, the birth and death cycle for emotions are.
Yeah.
You know, we're kind of the species, it seems like, and this modern species, this current incarnation of like Americans are just we just don't know how to deal with our emotions, because we've been talking about our emotions for the past 20-30 years since psychotherapy became a thing. And like, we're still just kind of like, we just don't have, not a lot of us just don't have a firm grip on how to manage our emotions. And then the story, the other thing that you said that I thought was interesting, it was almost like watching a timeline dissolve, right? And this domino effect of like, he didn't ask me out, and then this fell, and then this fell, and this fell, and this fell, and you almost place all of these like expectations of like, this is the life I'm going to have, and then when that doesn't work out the way that you imagine it, then it becomes almost like you failed as a human being, and that is a very, very erroneous and terrible feeling to have. So let's get into Duncan. So tell us a little bit about. I'm going to have you talk about Duncan a little bit too. I'm going to shuffle so that everybody can see the beautiful cover of your first episode of Duncan a Gay.
Oh, okay, there we go. I was like, she moved something and she went away, and I'm like,
I'm just pushing buttons. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Now she's gone. I guess I will talk about Duncan.
Yeah, I was just so you can see the cover, and I'm just gonna duck off for a second. Okay.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. I just didn't know what was quite happening.
It's Aether and Ink. Nobody knows what's happening. We're all locked in the mysteries here. Especially when I start pushing.
Okay, so I'm Chris. I am author and creator of Duncan, a Gay Teenage Witch. So when I was growing up, I loved Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and she was my thing. She was my Friday nights all the time, and she's still with me. In a sense, I probably need to start rewatching her just because my inner child is really trying to talk to me, since we're talking about mothering and all this stuff, and mothering ourselves and being more nurturing to ourselves. And Duncan, so another thing that you should probably know also is that I'm gay. You probably know that already. Shocker. But I was not brought up in a home that was supported. And so Duncan is a story that allows a teen boy to be open and comfortable with who he is. And so Duncan is what I also like to do in my writing is flip worlds. So with Sabrina the Teenage Witch, it's a comic book from Archie Comics. She's a witch who lives in the mortal dimension with her aunts. And at least in the TV show, she has to go to a mortal school. With Duncan, a Gay Teenage Witch, I wanted to flip that. And instead I asked, what if Sabrina went to school in the magic realm? And so Duncan is going to a magic school in the other realm with other creatures, such as witches, vampires, mummies. It's kind of like Sabrina the Teenage Witch meets Monster High is what it is. And it's just a 13-year-old boy who's kind of lost because he doesn't have access, or he has access to it, but he's trying to discover how to use his magic in general, because his parents know how to do it. His parents have done it for all these years, but he just cannot seem to get his magic to work. So a lot of this is going to be kind of like a coming of age, growing up, learning who you truly are, and learning what your own personal magic is. And this is episode 1. It was released on Amazon. If you do want to go to my website, you can also get it there, where I get more royalties. And also, I am planning on episode 2 is mostly done. It's going to be his first day at the school. And then the third one I'm actually starting to write, with his first kiss of his boyfriend. So I'm going to go back. So that's kind of the series in general. But the first episode that's out is he gets his first boyfriend on his 13th birthday. Again, he doesn't really know about magic or whatnot, but his parents have actually enrolled him in a magic school, and they tell him on his birthday that they are changing schools. So because he doesn't want to leave his boyfriend behind in the magic dimension, he actually casts a spell to hopefully prevent himself from actually going to the magic school. And, how stories go, when magic is performed by a minor, things go awry. And that's what the first episode is about. And we're just it's very episodic. I'm planning on 12 episodes for the first season, and then I will hopefully get it printed. So that is, I think that's Duncan.
Is that Duncan? Ooh, I was Duncan. I love it. We had a couple of questions from the audience. ML's really into this. He says that Duncan sounds like a cool story. And he says, as a gay man, I love seeing someone I can relate to. I did not see that growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bethany asks, how close is it to Halloween Town where Marty goes to Monster College?
I'm going to say, so this is going to be really weird to say.
Yay, we love weird.
I want to say it does not relate at all because I have never seen Halloween Town. So I have no idea. I want to watch it, but I have no idea about, I don't know who Marty is. I don't know what Halloween, I've seen it on Disney Plus. I've never seen it like myself. I've seen the thumbnail, but I've never seen it. So going to Monster College, I honestly have no idea. I looked at it more as Monster High because it's more of a kid show, and Sabrina was kind of a kid show, and I wanted just to combine them both that way. But maybe it is the exact same thing as Monster High from Halloween or Monster College from Halloween Town. I don't know.
I love that. You're like Schrodinger's cat. It could be or it could not be. I don't know.
I don't know. It was not, the Halloween Town was not a inspiration for the story. That's
it sounds like it's definitely like how old is he? 13?
13.
13, yeah.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that that premise for your story. My next question kind of dives into, so you've mentioned that Duncan is a way of writing Duncan, and this is where we're going to start to rewrite this story. We can take all of that disappointment and like, how do you deal with it? How do you feel it? How do you sit in it? And how do you change it to make it better? So you've mentioned that Duncan is a way of giving yourself an opportunity to experience a childhood that was different than the one you lived. Can you share more about how creating this story has been healing for you?
I'm not gonna, I guess it could be healing for me. I'm going to say it's more healing for Parker. Parker is my inner child's name.
Okay.
I named him Parker. I've discovered that I think he's the one who's actually telling the story, not me. And I think it's just healing. I'm also writing it for him, obviously, because I'm the vessel.
Right. They're all kind of under your domain.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think that it's healing to me to know that I can go to a space that is, I'm trying to figure out how to even word this, because I loved the world of Sabrina. Like, it was, Sabrina growing up was like my second life. I was, once I had enough tapes, I would rewatch the tapes. I looked forward to it on Friday nights. Like, it was School and Sabrina, and Power Rangers. Like, that's literally what my life was growing up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so being able to dive into a world that's very similar to that, but also my own, it just makes it healing to know that I am making something special for me, for Parker, and also for people who don't, like what ML said. He didn't have a lot of gay people growing up that he could look up to. And considering, like, again, what we were talking about earlier when you first got on, we're living in some dark times right now, and there are some people that need to have someone they can look up to, and two, just a fun short story to listen to, read.
It's very much is almost like, you definitely, I don't know if the audience knows this or not, but you have a background in Hollywood, and you are an extra, right? And you've done some script writing as well.
Yeah, I do. Okay. I did a web series. I produced a web series called Just Us Guys. It's on YouTube. It's basically Gilmore Girls with guys. A gay dad is best friends with his straight son. Comedy ensues.
Love it.
And like, obviously, and that was also very healing for myself, because it's grandma, in Gilmore Girls, grandma is the villain, whatever. And in Just Us Guys, grandma was the villain, and grandma was also my mother.
Mhm.
So that was just kind of like, if those fights were to come up between me and my mom, how it gave me an opportunity to, what would I say in that moment, kind of a thing. And so with Duncan, it's kind of the same thing, as to where it's just like rewriting my childhood a little bit to where I can actually have magical powers, and
Yeah, cool.
I can be in a loving home where my parents don't mind that I'm gay, and they're actually very supportive. So it's healing in that way.
I think that stories, the importance of stories, and not just writing them, but reading them, is that they are a life experience.
Yeah.
They become, even though you don't in the physical world experience like the story itself, you experience in your mind, which isn't always able to differentiate between story and reality. Obviously, you see a lot of that these days, but in a good way too. So like, if you're, and I think that's a really powerful thing to do as a writer and as somebody who reads those kind of stories, is that you give yourself the opportunity to not to overwrite necessarily, but to add another line of dialogue and another experience alongside the one you had. And I think that's what's healing. I think that allowing that not to be a stagnant, definitive, this was my childhood and it's cast in stone and it'll always be like that. But if you experience stories that show you different things and different ways of being, it can allow that to open up and to breathe a little bit. And I think that there's, I had I don't know, she was very mysterious. She was a psychotherapist, and she said things like, if you go back into the cosmos and heal something in time, like that happened to you 20 years ago, it heals everything that happened since. And like, it's almost like it's almost like hacking your experience a little bit, I think. Because I mean, if you're able to go back and not necessarily in a literal way, but if you change an experience that you had or re-envision an experience that you had in your past, and you're able to let it not be so terrible and to let something good into that, I think that it just it allows you to, it does that thing where you're no longer locked into a personality that you had before or an experience that you had before, and you're no longer stuck in that experience. So I think that's kind of what she was also very like, I don't know, but it made sense at the time, because it seemed like I just feel relief in that, like if you can let go of something that happened before. Go ahead.
Which again goes back to disappointment. We were never able to release some of that. So we're walking around with all this disappointment that's just been building up, that we've never learned how to heal, never learned how to release that. And so like, that goes right back into everything that we were talking about earlier. It's just like healing from our past and using our own creativity to heal that past. Now, also what I like about Duncan in general too, is because Sabrina, I loved the 90s. I'm a 90s guy. I'm a 90s boy, whatever.
Yes.
And
same.
Sabrina was in the 90s. And so when I'm actually writing this Duncan story, I am actually writing it as if he is TGIF. For those of you who don't know, there was a time on TV where on ABC, there was a lineup of comedies on Friday nights that people would actually stay in and watch. And it was called TGIF. Thank God It's Friday. And Sabrina was on that lineup. And I'm actually writing Duncan as if he's a part of that lineup.
I love that.
It gives me a feel of actually writing a version of that, and also what I would envision it to go, where I would like it to go if it were ever to go onto TV or something like that. I'm also, as I'm writing it, I've combined two houses. So I loved Charmed growing up as well. And Charmed, they had a Victorian home. It was a manor. It was a maroon, dark brown kind of dollhouse-esque feel. And Sabrina was also Victorian, but more very white, very blue, very clean. you can say.
Yeah.
And so as I'm writing this, I am actually having the Sabrina house set up in stages, like looking at the set, how the set is set up as I'm writing all these scenes. But instead of having them white like Sabrina, they're actually red and brown, like Maroon with Charmed.
So the architecture of Sabrina, but the color palette of Charm. I love that.
So I'm just kind of reliving some of my old 90s version stories. I'm kind of like creating my own. I had my art, the guy who did the art for this, he's like, well, why can't the house talk or whatever? And he's like, why do you want them? I'm like, because it's just a house. Like I didn't necessarily want it to go too deep into everything else around it, like the why for everything. I just wanted to create my own little 90s version of the world and just kind of just put Chris in there.
I love that. No, that's amazing. I think that I do that something similar too, because we're all kind of the culmination of things that we love when we're writers, you know, a lot of the times. And like, definitely you can tell that you've been inspired by these 90s, these wonderful, magical 90s TV shows. And I love nostalgia. I'm a really big fan. This show is like, I had this dream where I was supposed to start live streaming. So I kind of came up with the idea for Aether and Ink. And I was told that they needed to have Pee-wee's Playhouse vibes, you know? And I
would say that you are doing pretty well with that one.
Am I good? Oh, good. Okay. The angel will be pleased. Don't want to make them mad. Right. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, I think that what resonates with what you do with me is that there needs to be more joy in the world. And there needs to be more. And I write very, very dark, very heady stories, but I will throw in an exploding T-Rex, or I will throw in like some ridiculous camp, like, because I love humor and I love to laugh. And I think that nothing is either terrible or amazing. And I very much like, I'm also very experienced by the films and the books that I've loved. So I have artifacts of my past show up a lot in my stories too. So we've got comments. And ML said, this is why people trying to take books from LGBTQ plus kids is bad. Yeah, like taking them out of the libraries and things, which is happening in some parts of the United States. Yeah, censorship generally bad. And it's true, karmic healing. I think that was when we were talking about the going into the past and healing. Yeah, absolutely, karmic healing. Oh Lord, TGIF. Lisa Beeson showed up. Hi, I finally found it. I assume she's one of yours.
Lisa is a friend of Ben's. I just met her. She was she was the last tarot reading I did during the TikTok ban.
Oh, okay, cool.
I went live on the last day that TikTok was around before it decided to change, and we just finished the reading, and people were kicked out of my live. So she was the last one that I did.
Oh wow!
And when I closed the live, I had to close the app, and I couldn't get back on. So that's who Lisa was.
Oh, that's dramatic. Wow. Yeah.
The whole band has been very dramatic.
The whole last week has been all Mondays. It has been all Mondays. And Ben says, hello, Lisa. If you guys are enjoying the program, I guess it's a good time. I've got to get better at this. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We do this every Saturday. And I'm thinking about opening up some like excerpt readings at some point, because you had the idea during JL Kaufman's Right Now Writers Group on Wednesday nights. The idea of doing like almost a table reading for scripts, which I thought was really cool. And that is spinning in the back of my head. So story time. Yay. With storytellers. I love story time. Yes. And then Lisa says, hi, Ben. And ML says, hi, Lisa. And hi.
I'm bringing people over to you.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Please come in. We're having a fabulous time talking about how to rewrite the story. Oh, ML says he just got his copy of Duncan.
Thank you.
Sorry, but he's a Kindle boy.
Okay. Either way, I'm still happy that someone's reading it and just having more fun with it and just wanting to get to know a little bit more about Duncan. So
it's amazing. And then figures. I don't know. 'Twas fate. Figures. Okay, we're in TikTok. I'm trying to like sync up like our
Yep.
conversation with the comments and like,
Yeah.
that figures. And I was like, that could have been said at any point. Yep, figures. Okay. So it's very nice to see everybody. And yeah, keep chatting in the comments. We'll catch up when I stop talking because I don't even know why I interview other people. Just
Well, what's the next question off of your list?
So yeah, speaking of, I wrote a book called, I better show everybody. I designed the cover. It's pretty. It's called Deture's Requiem. It's a psychological horror, a tragedy / a hope. And my main character is bisexual and has a sexual experience in an alley. And I had one of my beta readers. It takes place in the 70s and 80s. And he was like, well, why doesn't this guy have like any kind of shame or doubt attached to, being bisexual? Or like when they're in the alley, like, why isn't he afraid they're going to get caught and what might happen? And again, that's kind of going back into like talking about an experience. And my reaction to that was similar to yours, which is like, why does it have to? Like, why can't stories represent some sort of ideal where people don't have to stress out about being who they are? Go
back to that a little bit. So what Penelope's talking about is, we talked about this a little prior a couple of weeks ago, was that I was actually in a writer's group for a hot minute, just like one meeting, and I shared with them the teaser to my second episode of Duncan. And the main comment I got was, why doesn't he feel scared to be gay? Why doesn't he feel this to be gay? Why can't you make this more of a parody for being gay? And I'm just like, that's old thinking, where we want to move ahead of that and move. I feel like the narrative should be moved forward. I don't think that we as gay people or LGBT people, LGBTQ, for the most part, we've actually gotten to a space to where we're comfortable with who we are. It's everyone else that has a problem with us. And the more that we, in our own art, show that, I think the more people will be more comfortable with our own sense of self. Mm-hmm. The more that we show that we're ashamed, the more we're still just playing to that rhetoric and playing to the fact that we are not meant to be here. We're not worthy enough to be people. We're not mentally safe, whatever you want to say, however many people are saying it. But so yeah, Duncan might be 13 and he might be gay, but he's cool with it. His parents are cool with it. His friends and family mostly are. I did write a little bit of that with the boyfriend not being out to his parents, but he's also Indian, not Native American. He's Indian. So with that, there comes a little bit of a cultural thing there. But for the most part, he's just a gay witch. The problem is going to be more about him learning magic, not about him being gay.
I love that. I love stories that propel the narrative forward into a not so distant future when we can all just get over our shit. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that one of the things that really inspires me about those kind of stories is like just being kind of like being able to experience a world where things don't necessarily matter in a way that you thought they had to. It's almost like an invitation to enjoy being who you are a little bit more, or an invitation to joy, or an invitation to not giving a shit what other people think about you, you know. And I think that so often we get so caught in the narrative, that the victim narrative, you know, we're all kind of like, it feels very much like everybody's out to get me. I'm talking about myself here, but I know other people probably feel this way too. Everybody's out to get me. I'm doing something wrong. I'm going to get in trouble for it. You know, and I think that when we can experience a story, or as a writer, create a world in which those things don't necessarily exist, it's almost like, oh my God, I feel like a human being, a human being where I can actually care about stuff that matters rather than who's out to get me. you
And
know?
and also as I'm writing Duncan too, with that in mind as well, I'm just like, again, the world is so dark. Like, why can't we just find a happy story that we want to sit down on a Friday night, read a short story that's 10,000 words and just have a good time? Why does it
Mhm.
always have to be what zombies killing me? Why does it always have to be what murder is happening? Why does it always have to be some nightmare or some weird why can't you just have a TGIF story to watch, to read, and just have a good time, laugh, see some magic, or envision some magic or whatever, and just
Mhm.
take a break from the world. And that's kind
Mhm.
of more of what I'm going for with my writing. Is I like to get, like, there's still some realism with Just Us Guys that happened, because
Mhm.
very gay parenting kind of time.
Mhm.
But with I just want Duncan to be just this fun story. Like, I don't want it to be. It's already going to be a political piece because it has the word gay in it. But
Right.
it's just I just want it to be a fun story for people to read. I'm not trying to say anything about anything. It's just have fun and have fun with magic.
Yeah. Yeah, like, do you remember fun?
Yeah.
It was this thing where
Do you remember fun?
do you remember what you loved doing when you were a child and like nothing else in the world mattered and you could just like enjoy something like with your whole body for like
Yeah.
5 minutes or just laugh at something or be totally like kids. Being a kid is like just being like completely fascinated by what Bugs Bunny is doing for a whole 5 minutes and nothing else matters. It's being able to dive into that fascination with something amazing and uplifting. And like, yeah, I think that a lot of people today almost like I think it is so dark that there's this like underlying sense of cynicism.
Mm-hmm.
Where like anybody who gets too light or too goofy or too whatever, it's like, oh, you don't care, or like, you're so out of touch. And it's like, but what if taking care of yourself and showing up for yourself is being a big goofball or
But
loving
also,
magic or
what if you are so in touch that you need to have a break?
there's so
Like, you can flip that. Like, what if you are so in touch with the craziness of the world that you're like, I'm just trying to create a space where people can have 20 minutes to themselves.
yeah
Like,
I love
that's
that
it.
too. It's like, yeah, I can the battle weary social justice person comes home and then just enjoys the shit out of Duncan for 20 minutes. Like I
Yeah,
love that idea. Like,
yeah.
yeah, have
I'm
fun. So
welcome it.
like
Yeah.
this was kind of the question that kind of followed up that the whole like we got tagged for having gay characters that weren't ashamed of ourselves, which I get that. I get the line of inquiry because it was like, would that make sense? And it's like, yeah, but does it have to?
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think some people find it difficult to imagine a world where people live without shame? Like what makes that I mean, that comment, it was odd that it came up for both of us. And I think that it would be a very common question.
Where's the comment? What was the comment?
No, not that. Not
Oh,
the comment that like that you got in your writers group and that I got from one of my beta readers. Yeah, sorry. Where like why aren't they having self-doubt about being gay, or and why do you think that is?
I think it's
That
a
a lot of people.
combination of how people were brought up and a fact of that they are trying to they are how do I say this? It's the way that they were brought up, the things that they were taught that they have not untaught themselves, and there's a sense of not minding their own business.
Mm.
I think they're projecting their own insecurities onto somebody else.
It could be it. It could very much be it.
That's
Yeah.
kind of where I think that people are like trying to it's just this seed that's inside, because no one's born thinking anything.
Yeah.
we are born we are born crying because we are not in a warm womb anymore. We are born crying because it is cold and we are not
Mm-hmm.
comfortable anymore. That's
Yeah.
it. We
And you're
don't know
hungry.
our
Yeah.
name, maybe hungry, but we've been fed through our belly button the entire time,
Right.
umbilical cord. But I think it's more, again, we are born cold in a new environment and we are scared.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know our name. We don't know what's happening. We don't know who our parent is. We're also being taken away from where we've been very safe from.
Mm-hmm.
But regarding back to your question, I think the reason why people, again, are projecting some of their own ideologies about how people should feel about being gay is that they were brought up with these ideals and they have not processed them. That's kind of that's how I'm processing some of this stuff. It's just there are some prejudices that they were brought up with in their own homes that they have not been able to work through and come up with how they are comfortable being themselves, in a sense.
I think
Does that make sense? I don't even know if that makes sense.
So like I think that shame is something that we learn from other people. Like I think that other people it's a control thing, right? Like it's very easy to tell somebody that they should be ashamed of themselves, and like if they don't know any better, like learn to be manipulated and controlled through shame.
But that's also going back to everything that's happening now. Whenever you post something online and someone comments, you shouldn't be doing this because of whatever X, Y, and Z, they're projecting.
Yeah, it's a lot of you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And it's just like, why not for a second give yourself over to the idea that it could be okay, you know? And I think that it's really hard for some people to understand how things could be okay.
Or
I think that
from someone else learn.
Yeah,
why does everyone have to be right and wrong? Why can't you learn from other people's experiences? I don't know.
And that's one of the things. No, I really admire that about you, because you're always like, I'm going to show up. I'm going to see if I dig it. If I dig it, it's cool. If I don't dig it, it's just not for me. You know, like a lot of people want to be, again, that sense of that binary polarization, like it's either right or wrong, it's yes or no, and their opinions suddenly become like the means by which they measure what everybody else should be doing. And it's like, when did we get here?
All this being said, actually, I did have an interesting interaction on, I think it was on TikTok. It was on one of my videos. Someone commented, the tarot is evil. You shouldn't do it because the Bible says so, or, you know, whatever. And I was like, and I commented, and I was like, I believe that you can use the tarot to talk to God if you want to. If that's if you believe in God, I believe the tarot can be a way for you to talk to your God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to say. And it started actually a dialogue. Instead of actually saying, "Oh, you're stupid," I actually told them, if you want to use it to talk to God, go for it. And so we actually got into this a little bit of a conversation that I was very impressed with, actually.
Yeah,
and because she was saying something, and I don't know if it was a man or a woman, because I think it was a woman, but I don't think the profile picture was there. But she got to the point to where she said that her religion, I guess, tells her that how the cards are laid out, it's very demonic. And I asked her, and I was like, they all think a demon is doing it. And I was like, well, why can't it be God? Like, why can't God flip? Why can't you hold the deck of cards and think, oh, God's trying to give me a message? And why does it have to be demonic about where the cards land?
Yeah.
That's kind of where the conversation ended. But I made someone think.
That's good. Yeah, I love that. Instead of coming from a place from like defensiveness, which I do that a lot. Like if anybody, it can even be innocuous, and I'm like, what do you mean by that? You know, like I have a lot of Mars in my chart too, so that might have something to do with it. But like instead of taking a conversation which turns into like, I'm right and you're wrong, you were like, hey, well, what if it isn't that way? You know, and I wish more people like kind of took that approach with things, because that's how you actually open dialogue, conversation. That's how that happens, which is becoming so almost not rare, but it's becoming less popular, and a less popular social interaction than trying to one up each other. So I'm going to dive into the comments right quick. I think this is in regards to the pregnancy thing where we were like, we were living, please put me back. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Everybody thought that was funny. Does the afterlife charge rent too? I think the cost of the afterlife is one life.
I don't know. That's actually an interesting. I've never thought about it that way before.
I think that I have my own cosmology that goes into that. I don't think that we get to stay there that long. I think that incarnation is a thing, and we got to keep trying.
I don't want to come back. I
don't
don't
think we have a choice.
Nope.
Honestly,
Nope.
I think you're like,
I
no.
am not signing that contract. If I'm signing a contract, I am coming back as a household cat. That is what I am going to be fed. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to be warm, and I do not have to pay bills. That is how I'm coming back. I
If
will
you
not
do,
sign humans. I will not sign up to be a human again. This is I am not doing that.
nope. Just no.
Been there, done that.
Been there, done that, and you're like, yeah, and then you go back and you're like, oh God, I gotta do it again. I've been there, done that 1,000 times. I have to do it 1,000 more because we never learn a lesson. Right?
Nope. I've learned enough lessons.
You're like, I've learned. I got it.
I just want to I just want to sleep. I just want to sleep all day in a warm bed. That's it.
You know what? Being a house cat doesn't sound so bad.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah,
you're fed, the food's taken care of, you have a house, you don't have to pay anything, and you just
if your owner's really weird, she puts you on the TV screen and makes you say funny things about writing, Miss Mirabelle, wherever she's at. So there was no tarot in biblical times. So yeah. So I mean, how do you know if it's against the Bible? Because there isn't. And then Ben, who knows the history of tarot, comes in with the tarot. She was created by rich Italian Catholics in 1397. And again, like if you want to diverge into a different conversation completely, you can talk about how astrologers got to hang out with the kings and stuff well past the time when like female intuition and midwives and witches were all kind of pushed to the side, where the more masculine divinations were like exalted and the yeah, it's a gender thing, but we don't have to get into that today. The Bible's yeah, that's a biblical story. We don't. Oh, another thing. The Bible spoke about using a stone for communicating with God. Yeah, I think that a lot of the divination, the anti-divination, is a gender and political medieval ages, but also with the burning times and things like that. We have had this conversation recently. They did divination. Okay, they called it drawing lots. Oh, I didn't know
there's astrology. There's divination in the Bible.
Astrology. I knew astrology was really old. Yeah. Okay, they're having a conversation, and then we're just going to end that with men.
Yep.
Thank you. Yep. I appreciate that. I know, right? I'm Penelope Hartley, and before I did all this, I was a historian, and I got my master's degree in history, and I was a professor for a while. But like literally, I was like, they called me white man because I said that an awful lot in class. I was also like one of 2 women in that class too, so it was fun. Anyway, so moving right along with our conversation here.
Yeah, what's the next question?
All right. Oh, this one is interesting. Do you think that stories like Duncan or Datura's help us model the life we want to see in the world, and how much does fiction shape reality?
That's going to be tricky.
Yes.
I feel like, can you say the question one more time?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have an answer. I just want to make sure that I'm just going to say it correctly.
Oh, you're right. So do you think that stories like Duncan and Datura's help us model the life we want to see in the real world, and how much does fiction shape reality?
So I'm going to say this in a way that may not be quite answering your question.
That's fine.
We'll see how this goes. So I believe that if you want your reality to change, or you at least go into reading stories with an open mind, that your reality can change once you kind of absorb that art.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to seek that art out.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be open enough to say, oh, I've read romance novels for the last 20 years, but I maybe want to try dystopian.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to go into it expecting to learn something new, expecting to read something different than what you're used to. So in regards to your question, I think that fiction can model our reality or change our reality, but you also have to be open enough to what it is going to say, what you're going to read about, how you're going to take away from it. Mm-hmm. But if you want to stay in your own little romance world, but you're not, but there's no self-growth there.
Right.
Not saying that romance is not self-growth. I'm not saying that.
Right. No. You say that about anything. You could say that about history. You could say that
Yeah.
about like fantasy. Anything that
So,
stays within its same realm does by virtue of it being the same, it's
yeah.
nothing different happens, no growth stems from
So
it.
I just kind of feel like fiction can change reality. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to get magical powers and become I mean, I am witchy, but I'm not going to have, like, I'm not going to be able to do all that stuff.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe, well, I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. Maybe, I don't know. But I can at least take the lessons from reading a story like Duncan, apply that to my life.
That is that's an excellent thing.
But that's how I think how fiction can change lives, how fiction can change the way you view your life, can change that kind of thing. But you also need to seek it out. And if you don't seek it out, again, if someone's not liking the gay people, but it's only because they've been brought up in all of this stuff, if they're not open enough to say, oh, maybe I should read a gay book. It doesn't have to be a gay spicy book. It doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
A gay kids book, a gay Duncan, a history about gay people, like just something to get yourself out of what you were brought up with and start forming your own thoughts about things instead of just focusing on what people have told you in the past. Does that answer your question? I don't know if that.
No, it does. And I think that it's a matter of being, instead of being judgmental, it's a matter of being curious. I see those as very
there you go, curious. That's
curiosity.
the word. That's the word.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to be like, why not be curious about the freaking world around you, because it's this amazing big thing full of like wonderful things and wonderful people, and be a little bit curious, go outside of your life a little bit. Like, I live in a small town in the Midwest, and a lot of people have never left town here, and it's like I've gone places and done things, and I cannot imagine staying intellectually with the same kind of books. I'm pan literary. I'll read anything. But like, and I've gone different places and I've had all of these experiences, and my life has felt fulfilled like that. I mean, like, I'm not saying, I'm not saying anybody that has chosen that for themselves is doing anything wrong, or I'm just saying that, like, if you had the opportunity, wouldn't you move a little bit more? Wouldn't you see what else is out there? But I think that one of the things that we think about a lot when we're thinking about changing the world is like big, sexy, like fantastical, like inventions, or like cures, or like, adventure or something like that. But like, I had a therapist tell me once, like, isn't like just changing your mind about something changing the world? And it can be, it sounds like very small and isolated, but aren't you worth it? Like,
I want to take that one step further, though. I've been learning a lot about different realities, and based on what you said there is like, when you change your own reaction to something or your own thought process, you're changing the world. But let's empress this a little bit more and say, how can you change your thought process? How can you change your world?
Yes.
Let's bring that down. Instead of changing the big world, 8 billion people,
so many.
Let's focus on our own world, and with your own thought process, you can use that to change your world, which will hopefully have a ripple effect into other people's world.
I think that, yeah, absolutely. I think
that's probably what your therapist was probably even saying. But
right.
I just wanted to take it one step further.
No, I like that. And I think that, so like, it comes down to me, like, I used to do a lot of social justice stuff back in the 20s and things like that. And I think I was telling you this, that I was very, very much like, I get very angry and I get very protective of people. The Mars and Moon in my chart. But and I was watching this guru like much later. I got very mental health issues plus like social justice things, and I was almost like I was projecting, trying to save other people, or the environment was a big thing for me. and not like dealing with my own stuff, right? And so this guru was talking about how he had like he saw a lot of injustices in the world and it would make him very angry, and then he realized like there was going to be injustice in the world whether or not he was angry about it. And so he decided not to be angry about it. And I was like, that again, that goes back to like, you don't have to have the emotional reaction to things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually, it feels better as a human being not to have those sort of reactions to those things. Even though, I mean, I'm not saying that it's like it becomes cynicism or it becomes like, oh, these problems don't matter, because they still matter. I just don't have to have the energy wasting emotional reaction to those things. And it's almost like you start to, so I mean, like, yeah, so changing your world, like stories, this is going to tie into the other thing I was going to say. So like stories back through the centuries have been about heroes and villains, and have been about how people could, ideals that people could aspire to to aspire to, right? So we have like Marvel movies, I think, are a really good example of this, where you have like the hotshot inventor in like Iron Man, or you have like the courageous kid from Brooklyn in Captain America. But all of these guys are really brave, and they kind of embody this ideal of how it is to be a hero. And I think that that's really inspiring for kids. And, you know, I enjoy those stories too. But a lot of times fiction can give us very complicated characters to help us navigate the complications in our lives. They can give us characters that make us laugh and we have fun and we get in nostalgia of things. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I think all of these things, I think that the interplay between whether or not fiction and art reflects reality or they reflect, or vice versa. I think that it's just this wave that kind of goes back and forth. A lot of, I mean, like, obviously stories today are different than they were 50 years ago. So not only fiction is affected by reality, but how much does it almost turn around and look at reality and say, okay, well, maybe you're like me, you know? So sorry, I'm getting deep into it.
I also think that there comes a point with regards to your story that you were telling about the guru, like always injustice. There comes a time where you also as a person have to keep controlling your own self. What can you control? You can't control 7 billion people. You can't control what they're going to do with their lives. That's their lives, that's their mission, that is their life cycle. And so I don't think getting to a point of like being okay with it is the right wording necessarily. I think it's more I can't control this, but I can control me and I can control my surroundings. And that's kind of where I would go with that one, is just understanding what you can control and understanding what you can't control. And that's just that's kind of what you can do with, and that's kind of how I approach that kind of thing. But,
and at the same time, once you get that, you get other people can't control me too. So like people who try to manipulate you or shame you or for whatever, like that, it goes both ways too. I call that saving your fucks for magical stuff. You know, like, it's like, I'm going to do me, and like, you can be yourself. And if that merges, that's cool. We can hang out. But like, if it doesn't, like, I don't need to waste my energy on this.
And that's what I said a lot of people to on my TikTok. Sometimes I get these comments that are like, tarot's bad. I'm like, you do you, boo.
Yeah. Why don't you go
stay over there? I'll stay over here, and we'll just be cool. Like, that's it.
I have my reaction for people who, if I keep doing this and if people start showing up and they start like naysaying, I'm just gonna be like, then go find something you like doing.
I'm trying to be as in my own practices of all this stuff that's going on in the world right now. I am trying to be as open-minded as I can to people before I just immediately block them.
Yeah.
Because I have another person on my Instagram right now who, I mean, I don't know where they are now, but they were saying, you're not gay. And I'm like, you don't know me. Like, I'm gay. I know that I'm gay. Like, but he was like, he said one or two other things, and I was like, your comments are not being very helpful right now.
Yeah.
So can you, like, I don't know if that shut him up or whatever, but I'm just like, so that's just kind of, I'm trying to be as, I know I shouldn't be giving people this much of my attention, but
Yeah.
when they come into my world, I want to try to be a little bit of that bridge, at least extend out an olive branch, only because there's so much divisiveness, whatever,
Division?
division in the
Sort of.
world right now. And I know that I honestly don't think that we're ever going to get to a happy space. I don't think that they're ever, unless, like, I had this realization a couple of days ago, and it's going to sound very strange, but one of the things that someone mentioned on a social media platform, I don't know where it was, but someone was saying the United States of America. The first question that they asked in this video was, when was the last time the United States was united on anything?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I started thinking back about, when were we? Yeah, Ben knows. when were we united on anything? And in the this goes back to segregation. This goes back to probably the world wars, all this stuff. But in the last 24 years, there are 3 times that I can show when Americans were probably really hyped up together. 9/11. Pokemon Go came out.
Yeah.
And when TikTok was going to be banned.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's been red versus blue. You're not like me. Other than that, in the last 25 years, those are the only 3 times that as Americans we have joined together. That's it.
Yeah,
and I mean, someone else prove me wrong. Someone else tell me other things. Those are the 3 things that come to my mind when I think about Americans coming together, just because they're people that are in the same room.
I can tell you, as a historian, even the historians can't agree on what happened. So, like, you know, no, nobody ever agrees on anything. I think that, we have this, like, this tendency, and this goes back into, like, we're very individualistic, not selfish, but, like, very, like, the Horatio Alger is going to do the thing, and he's going to live the American dream. You know, we have that kind of wrapped up in that whole, like, sort of mythology of America. And this very individualistic, and it emphasizes, like,
sorry, I laughed because you said the mythology of America, and I was like, oh, that's so perfect.
Right? Yeah.
There's so much
it was with the eagle.
It's mythology. Like,
Yeah.
it's
not just Paul Bunyan. It's like we have this ideal of ourselves in our head that, like,
we do.
You know, it's just like right.
No,
but
just the mythology of, wow, that was amazing.
Thank you. Aw, you are welcome. But, like, I don't even remember what I was talking about. but no. We have this kind of this mentality of, like, this. It seems like that individualism, like, makes us think that our opinion is equal representation in Congress, equal opinions, and it's like, nah, kid, don't work like that. Like, if your opinion is valid, when you call it facts and it's your opinion, that is a different thing. And, like, just this whole, like, we were talking about, like, reality and fiction, like, being 2 different things. It's like, I think that the nature of reality, if human attention towards, like, what reality is shifts, like, the fundamental nature of reality I feel like a lot of times that I'm in weird timelines, because I hear things and I'm like, that are going on in society, and I'm like, which freaking timeline is this? Like, that doesn't sound like reality, like the reality I grew up with, you know? And it's like, when people, somebody is messing with the hologram. And I think the intern is running it. And really, can you just reset the whole thing? It's the nature, the very fundamental nature of reality. And I remember in the 90s and the 2000s with, like, I got my news from The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and later Stephen Colbert and the Colbert Report. And I remember when the Colbert's word truthiness won the word of the year. And it was to kind of describe this sort of like, oh yeah, it's truth, but it's not actually fact, but it's being touted as truth. And how adorable that was 25 years later when it's like, we don't even have facts anymore. We have, that word has been so overused that I've become numb to the idea. When somebody tells me that's a fact, it's like the word love in the sense that love gets so overused with things. Like, I love these shoes means the same thing as like, I love you eternally, and it's just like, it's gotten so overused that it's like flattened the meaning of it. So yeah. So, okay, we have about 30 minutes left. What's
the next question? Do you have another question?
I do have another question. I also have to take a bio break because I drank all my unicorn tears, so that shot right through me. Do you mind taking the stage for a minute as I ask the next question?
Do you want me to, while you're gone, read the part of Duncan that you want me to read?
Yeah, go ahead. Do that.
That might be a good time to do that.
This is a great time to. I have to figure out how to like splice these in better where I don't announce it to everybody. But like, yeah, I have a child's bladder, so sorry. I'm gonna pull this up and I'm gonna get you adjusted. And I don't know, do you have that ready or do you need a second?
I mean, I have it here. I just pull it up.
Oh, okay, great. So we'll do this.
Okay, everyone. So apparently I'm in charge. So I'm gonna read a little excerpt from Duncan, a Gay Teenage Witch, the first episode. This is already out. And so we are going to read this final thing here. So what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to read a section of Duncan that is in the middle, sort of. Hold on, let me fast forward to this thing here. Here we go. Okay. So like I mentioned before, this is my first self-published short story. It's Duncan, a Gay Teenage Witch, Sabrina the Teenage Witch meets Monster High. And Duncan, on his 13th birthday, just got his first boyfriend. And so, again, he wants to stay at his school right now, but his parents have told him they want to move him to a magic school to help him learn his magic. But because he wants to stay with his boyfriend, he is wanting to stop this from happening. He's 13 years old. He wants what he wants. Even though he wants his magic, he still wants his first boyfriend. So here is 2 scenes from chapter 3 of what Duncan, a Gay Teenage Witch is. Unable to sleep, Duncan tosses and turns as his alarm clock taunts him, making it feel like the time to put his plan into action will never come. 10:34, 11:02, 11:17, 11:28, 11:36, 11:41, 11:44, 11:44, 11:48, 11:49, 11:49, 11:49, 11:49, until finally 11:50. Duncan jumps out of bed, already dressed in all black, a burglar-like outfit. He moves his pillow aside and puts on the black beanie and gloves that were hidden underneath it. Let's do this. Crouching, he sneaks over to his door, turns the knob, and opens it slowly, while putting the other gloved hand on the bottom hinge to avoid that one mid-swing squeal. He peers into the hallway and sees that the coast is clear. Duncan slithers down the stairs with precision, successfully avoiding every creak on the way down except one. He squeezes his eyes shut and pauses, expecting to be caught by his parents, but they don't make an appearance. He sighs with relief and moves on. The bottom of the stairs at the end is at the front entryway of the house, which is connected to the living room where Carolyn was earlier. Carolyn is his mom. There was a scene prior to that. Crawling on his hands and knees, Duncan makes his way down the hall into the kitchen and heads to the back door. Once there, he waits, feeling his heartbeat in his feet. There's a perfectly timed, quiet knock on the other side of the door. Knock, 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 knock. He opens the door to Zishan, dressed exactly like Duncan. Zishan is his boyfriend. Duncan opens the door and waves Zishan inside, pointing to the door just opposite of them. Once Zeshan is past the threshold, Duncan swings the door shut, but at the last second, he remembers that he's on a secret magic mission and quickly puts his fingers in the doorway, smashing them. Zeshan immediately covers Duncan's mouth as his face turns cherry red while he holds in a scream. The tweens descend to the basement stairway as Duncan shakes out his smashed hand. When they get to the bottom, Duncan flips on a light switch that turns on a 6 wax-candled chandelier hanging in the center of the room, along with other numerous candles placed around the basement. The Dewitcher's magic headquarters. A giant black cauldron sits in the center of the room under the chandelier. Against the back wall is a long table with leftover herbs and mixing utensils that Duncan hadn't cleaned up after he brewed his banana prank potion a few nights ago. 2 of the basement walls are lined with old wooden shelves stuffed with leather-bound books and jars filled with questionable ingredients. The 4th wall on the right is oddly bare. Wow, Zeshan whispers. You can talk normal now, Duncan says. Dad soundproofed the room so neighbors can't hear potion explosions. Wow! Flip that lever on the wall, Duncan says, pointing to a 45-degree angled lever next to his head. Zeshan flips the lever and a fire automatically lights under the cauldron, immediately bringing it to a boil. Seriously? Zeshan asks. Just because we're witches doesn't mean we haven't gone digital. Okay, now what? Zeshan asks, rubbing his hands together. Let's do some magic. Come on, help me carry my dad's magic book. Duncan leads Zeshan over to a large leather-bound spellbook on the other side against the leftover herbs. The boys grab and carry it to a wooden music-like podium beside the cauldron. Losing their grip, they drop the book on the music stand, almost tipping it over. Whoa! They both say as they catch it before it tips over, then put it back upright. Whew! Zeshan says as they both grasp for air. Magic is heavy. Yeah, Mom and Dad have been around for a long time. Once his breathing returns to normal, Duncan flips to the index. Okay, let's see. School. Perfect. But I don't want to go to school. But I don't want to go to school spell. We need a number 47 pencil, some parchment. A number 47 pencil? Zeshan asks. What's that? It's a magic pencil, duh. Duncan says. We also need an apple, some parchment, and an earthworm. Parchment? Zeshan asks. Yeah, like really old paper, Duncan says. Spread out. Duncan and Zeshan split up and go to the opposite sides of the magical room. Wait, Zeshan asks, or says. Before we do this, I have to ask, can I help? I mean, I'm not a witch, and just look. Fine, I just thought one of us should ask the question. Zeshan finds a small cauldron the size of a coffee mug with pens and pencils and feathered quills in it. He sees an average yellow pencil and pulls it out. Everything about it looks like a boring yellow pencil, except for the number 47 at the top by the eraser. I found a 47 pencil, Zeshan says, investigating the pencil in his fingers as he brings it to the big cauldron in the middle of the room. What's so magical about it? It just looks like a dumb pencil. It writes stuff, Duncan says as he opens his father's mini fridge in the back corner. I found, no, duh. Duncan stops his task, goes to Zeshan and takes the pencil from him, like we have time for this. Duncan holds the pencil up in the air, and when he releases it, it floats. Write Zeshan, he commands with a phonetic tone. While still floating, the pencil does as it's told and writes Zeshan in a gray cartoon-like thought bubble. Wow, Zeshan says. He sticks his hand up to feel the bubble, but it pops at his touch. Cool. Duncan grabs the pencil from the air, drops it in the cauldron, returns to his father's mini fridge, opens the door, and sees 12 red apples neatly aligned on every shelf. Duncan steals one, and poof! A small cloud of smoke makes a new apple appear in place of the one that Duncan took. Dad's favorite fruit, Duncan says. Duncan goes to the cauldron and drops the apple into it. Is this parchment? Zeshan asks, meeting Duncan at the cauldron, bringing over a thick stack of oversized old wrinkly beige paper. Yep. What's it made out of? He sniffs the paper. It smells gross. That stack is made from 400-year-old sheepskin. Wait, seriously? Yeah, what? Zeshan hands the parchment over to Duncan and wipes his hands on his clothes. What? That's disgusting, Zeshan shivers. Yeah, they don't make parchment like this anymore, Duncan says, putting it back on the table. We can just use the parchment I ordered online. Duncan finds his Duncan finds his parchment and floats a few pages into the boiling puts a few pages into the boiling cauldron. Now all we need is an earthworm, Duncan says as he searches through the dusty shelves of jars, each filled with a different magic item. Dragon scales, eye of newt, pig's feet, lint, ostrich feathers, and eyeballs, among other questionable ingredients. Found them! Sashan watches Duncan untwist the top and dip his entire hand into the jar of earthworms. That is so gross, Sashan says, covering his mouth, trying not to throw up. Magic is not for the weak stomachs. Magic is not for people with weak stomachs, he says, extracting one slippery, slimy worm from the jar between his fingers. It wriggles as if it's trying to escape its fate as Duncan drops it into the potion. Psh! Okay, what's next? Sashan says, hoping it's not ear of dung beetle or whatever. Duncan returns to his dad's spellbook and his eyes bulge. Uh-oh. What? I have to say an incantation. Yeah, I kind of figured that would happen sometime tonight, Sashan says with a sigh of relief. No more ingredients. Duncan stares at Sashan, offended by his comments. I'm allowed to make potions, but I'm not allowed to say incantations. Why? The last time I tried saying one, that Ebola thing broke out in Africa. That was you? Weren't you like a baby? Hence why I'm not allowed to say incantations without supervision. Duncan straightens his back and waves his arms over the bubbling cauldron like an amateur magician. Let's see. Sashan can't help but giggle as his boyfriend makes it all too obvious that he's never done this part before. By the power of moonlight's glow, bind me to where I wish my roots to grow. Nothing happens, and then all of a sudden there's a boom. The potion explodes like fireworks in the boys' faces, filling the basement up with smoke. Duncan, Sashan coughs, swishing the smoke away from his face. Duncan, are you okay? Where are you? No answer. As Sashan's vision clears, it becomes apparent why Duncan is gone. I don't know if she is back. There we go. Penelope's okay.
Yay! I'm still here. Yeah, I came back. Oh no, I've been listening. That was wonderful. Aw.
I figured I'd leave everyone on a cliffhanger, but still kind of show them. I figured I'd still kind of show them magic.
I know it was so teenager. It was so awkward and wonderful. I love your dialogue. It's just like, yeah, I remember that. And if you watching at home would like to figure out what happens, you can look in the chat and purchase for 99 cents episode 1 of Duncan. I get Teenage Witch, written by Chris Lilly.
Episode 2 is almost done.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sent over an email to the artist to start possibly consider making the cover for episode 2. So
awesome.
Episode 2 is hopefully by March.
By March. Okay, cool. And that was his first day of school, right?
The next one is going to be his first day of school, where you're actually going to get to see more of. He makes friends with a merboy or a siren and a mummy. And he makes
a Muppet?
A mummy.
Oh, I thought you said a Muppet. I was like, Carmi?
No. Mummy. And he makes enemies of a group of vampires. So
that is not the people you want to make angry at you. Oh my god.
Nope. They are not happy.
You got high praise in that one. So sassy. Now I have to find out what happens to Duncan. Yes, you can. Yay. I love that. It was very, like you were talking about, like writing things that are lighthearted and joyful. And that definitely, like, I could feel my troubles washing away as I just enjoyed, like, two kids trying to do something that they have, like, a very limited idea of what they're doing. And that's just the kind of thing that makes me giggle. So thank you so much.
And that's all I want to do with Duncan, or at least most of my stories. There's going to be a little bit of a through line through all of my writing with people having problems with being gay, or at least having a gay storyline in there, depending upon what world I'm creating. But it's going to mostly be at least people within the immediate vicinity of the character, that they will be mostly fine with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
The problems are going to be like typical teenager going to Monster High problems, like pissing off the vampire kids or like hanging out with the sirens. Yeah. I like that. I mean, like different problems.
Yeah, different problems, but
different magic problems.
Yeah. So we'll get to learn about other people's mythologies as well.
Oh, cool.
But it's still going to be focused. It's going to be still very focused on Duncan and him learning how to use his magic, because it's called Duncan, a Gay Teenage Witch, for a reason. It's not called Duncan, a Gay Teenage Witch learns how to use mummy magic. It's not called that. It's called he's a witch. He needs to learn how to use his magic, but he's also learning about other people's magic at the same time. So.
I love that. Yeah. And even though it's like we were talking about, I think yesterday, like things are political. And I think that when you consider that writing is political and books are political, and I think when you consider the personal as political, like, and if you're not necessarily in a red state, blue state way, but if your politics are like everybody should hang out and kind of learn from each other and learn about different cultures and things like that, and be very like explore, like that's coming through, I think, in what I'm hearing with this. So, and I really like that. I remember when I travel. I like to travel. I do manage to get out of the Midwest every once in a while, and I like to go to different places and watch people for like a day, just to see what the vibe is like in, wherever I've been, like in Canada or England or wherever. And it's very cool to see different people being very much the same and yet very, very different from me.
Yeah. What's the next question?
Okay, right. So 2 more. Right quick. I'm going to ask you.
I don't know. How many questions do you have?
I had 10. We didn't get through all of them, but I've kept the 2 best ones, I think, for last. So rewriting disappointment. We've been talking about, this episode has been about disappointment and flipping the script on that. Means imagining something new. Do you think that writers have a responsibility to show readers the possibility of a better world?
I don't want to say they have the responsibility of it, only because everyone's world is different.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone has a responsibility to express their own world, so that everyone can kind of see that their world is not, so that their readers do not think that their world is the only one that exists. I think there's a responsibility to that, and to speak truthfully to your own personal experiences to connect with your reader. I don't know that we have a responsibility to change the world, though. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is a huge responsibility, but also if it's not what you're writing for, then yeah. But no, you're saying that the responsibility that any writer has at its core is expressing their world.
Or even just to be authentic. Just to
being authentic.
Be authentic. Tell your story authentically. Don't tell your story to hurt other people intentionally.
Yeah.
And I know there are probably writers out there that do that, but my heart is of gold, and so I don't think that I don't plan to do that at the moment. So if I do ever do something like that, I'm sorry, but I like to I want other people to feel welcome in my world.
Well, depending on how episode 2 goes, you may or may not be invited back to the Vampire Club, but overall. All right, so wrapping this up, what advice would you give to listeners who want to rewrite the story of their own lives? And how can imagination be a tool for healing? We kind of touched on this throughout the show, but do you have any way of synthesizing that idea for yourself?
I think the way that I would synthesize this idea or express it would be something how I kind of mentioned going back to Just Us Guys. Again, Just Us Guys was a web series I did about 10 years ago, and it became a very healing space for me, and I still have a lot of healing yet to do with that. But Just Us Guys was about a gay dad who has a best friend relationship with his straight son. And the villain of the story was Scott, was the dad. His conservative mother coming to reimagine, to form a new relationship with him because they've been estranged for a while. And she was very why are you gay, and why can't you, why did you actually have, so you're not married, how did you get a child, and how are you a single, like it was a whole thing about her wanting to be, her having her conservativeness placed onto these new people who have created a world for themselves. And there were topics that were coming up as I was writing these stories that I could hear what my mother would say to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used the dad, Scott,
Mm-hmm. The Scott, what a cool name. No, okay.
to reply to her in ways that I don't have the courage to do so. So in regards to your question about advice about how people would do that, first of all, give yourself some grace about whatever happened in your past that you were disappointed on, about things that you have not healed from, about things that you are holding on to that are still in your chest. We talked about where does disappointment feel? Where do you feel your feelings? We talked about all that. Empress yourself. You need to feel, like, give yourself some grace, give yourself some healing room, allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to cry. Next, I would allow you need to probably remember that whatever conversation or event that happened in your past, yes, it happened, but you reacted in the best way you thought possible at the time.
Yeah.
Now, it still could hurt, and there's still probably some healing that needs to be done there. But now, if you're going to spend this time writing a fiction story, you can take that moment and use a character to say what you truly wanted to say. And you can use that as a healing moment, almost like what you were saying earlier about picking a moment in your prior life and just kind of like healing from that, and everything else kind of gets swooshed. Kind of thing.
Yeah, the swoosh, the karmic swooshing.
You can kind of do that with that a little bit. I kind of feel like there's more. I don't know that it heals everything. I'm not. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that it can. I think it just depends on where you're kind of at in your healing journey.
Yeah.
But you can at least heal that moment in life.
Yeah.
And just know that you had all the information you thought was right at the time.
Yeah.
And that's how you can use your fiction to rewrite that moment and heal from it. And that's how I would approach writing fiction from a healing standpoint. That's how I would do it, but
I love it.
You do you, boo.
I love that. Yeah, it's I think that all novels and all writing at some point become a secret confession. And I think that if you don't write, even in a journal or even like, I think that you can really work through things on the page with that. And I think as a reader too, like if it's a symbiotic relationship, right? So people who are like us, who are writing things that creating new alternative realities for people to experience as a reader, we're both experiencing this idea of like, what if this isn't something I needed to worry about? Or what if I could just be happy and, enjoy what I'm doing, or like, whatever, like, yeah, I think I just liked my way through that. But like, I just tried to say, like, as a reader, we're doing it so that readers can experience that as well, is what I guess I'm trying to say. Tears are cleansing. Ah, yes, I know. I didn't cry for 10 years. Like I had stuff.
I've been crying a lot recently. A lot. And I blame Wicked for that, but I still.
Oh, that's right. I remember what you said about that. Like this was like it was. And again, this is experiencing the story from not the creator's point of view, but the people who are experiencing it. Like it makes something within you resonate, and like it opens up the emotions within you. Sometimes I think that it's easier to. Somebody who's braver or outside of your own headspace can experience emotion that you need to have, and seeing that is like, oh, God, yes. Yes, for you, it's Wicked. I haven't had anything like that recently. but I've been writing a lot lately.
Every time.
How many times have you seen it?
I've seen it 3 times. And I even, when I'm listening to this, like sometimes I'll listen to the soundtrack on like as I'm driving, and or even like on TikTok videos. I feel it. I already start feeling like I need to cry. Like it touched me that much. I'm so surprised. And I was not expecting that at all. I was not. I'd seen the play before and I was like, super cool. I'm not really a big Wizard of Oz fan. Like it was fine, whatever. But this was like, holy shit.
Wow. Yeah. That's the capacity sometimes of just music. Like that kind of like, you don't need the words and the language and the definitions of things. Like sometimes it can just be a note too. So right quick, ML wants to know if you used tarot when you were writing Duncan's story.
Oddly enough, not this one. I mean, I'm not saying that I will not use it in the future, but I had this story, this idea, this pilot of Duncan technically already written almost prior to actually knowing about tarot. I've done some revisions since because I was a part of a writer's group right before the pandemic, and pandemic kind of broke it up. But I presented this to them, and it sounded very much like Sabrina. I think it still had a Magic School Monster High feel to it. I'd have to go back to an old version, but I knew what the story was already for at least this pilot episode. But I am starting, and oddly enough, I actually use this deck, the wizard deck, to actually write Duncan stories. I actually so part of what I do when I tell people about writing with tarot is that if you're writing a story, if you're writing a zombie story, a mermaid story, a werewolf, well, werewolf is not there because I keep saying it because I'm writing a werewolf deck right now.
Right.
Because there's no werewolf deck to be found. I cannot find it anywhere unless Ben knows where one is, but I cannot find it anywhere. So
if anybody knows, Ben knows.
But I tell people to find a deck that mostly matches the world that you are creating, because these images of the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith are not going to help you write a mermaid story. No. They will not help you write a mermaid. So I have a mermaid deck if I have a mermaid story. And it's all about under the sea. It's got all these fish and all this stuff. So with Duncan, again, he's going to a magic school, and in this wizarding school, there's a lot of classrooms and teachers and stuff in here.
Oh, okay.
So cool. So I'm actually using this deck to write Duncan's stories. So just because I didn't use it in the pilot doesn't mean I won't be using it in the future. I hope that was answering that, but I
think you got it. Yeah. I think you got it. And I always love your philosophy around like writing and the particular subject choice and things like that. So thank you for mentioning that. Like, I think that's really good. If you're going to use tarot, a consideration is what deck and for what reasons. And picking something that happens in the world. Yes.
And that's why I have all of these, because if a writer comes to me and says I'm writing a zombie story, but they don't have but they're not a tarot reader. But if they are writing a zombie story, I have a zombie deck that I can use, and they can use it to connect to their story more.
Yeah.
I've learned I have a talent, because a lot of people can't really, they have a hard time reading different decks, whereas I can pick up a traditional tarot deck and read with them. Any of these decks, I can read with all of them.
Really?
All of them. Wow. I read with all of them. It's just
that would flubber me up.
I do it all the time. That's why it's partly why I have so many, to also help other people. But I've learned over my tarot journey that I have a talent to read multiple tarot decks.
That's cool.
So it's just, I'm learning to accept that.
Accept that and move into it, because whatever that skill set is, that's something to keep in mind. So
I guess what I also want to say really fast,
yes.
I need to find it.
Yes, we're going to wrap that up. So anything that you want to say?
Well, in regards to that question that you just had about does he use tarot to write Duncan? I actually just sent this idea for cover number 2 to my artist. I'm trying to find the card really fast. I'm sorry, it's in this one. This is an idea, I don't know if this is going to happen yet. An image has not been made. I just sent this email like 2 days ago. I'm wondering if the cover number 2 will look like this.
Oh.
I sent it to my artist. And the reason why I did it this way is because in Duncan, he has a wristwatch, very much so like a communicator from Power Rangers, because I'm a nerd like that. I'm going to do that.
Yay!
But that wristwatch opens the portal that goes to the other realm, the other dimension.
Oh, cool.
And so in the basement, the reason why the wall was bare is because that's where their portal is. So the watch is the portal, and the portal is it's very electrical. It's a pentacle. It looks like a pentagram. It's a star with a circle around it.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave that idea to my artist and said, can we have Duncan holding a bunch of his new school books, and have the portal kind of open similar to this, but in the middle of the portal we see the school. So
I like that. That's neat.
So I have used tarot before, and I use it to write the stories, but I used inspiration that way as too.
I like how cinematic you are. Like,
I can. Sorry, I'm looking at Ben's thing too. I can read a playing card deck. Yes.
Yeah. Can you?
I can.
I live with my parents, and my parents play canasta they're retirees, and they play canasta, and every once in a while, just like grab a card just to see what's going on from the canasta deck. I read a book. I'm not good at it, but
I read a book about how to read playing cards, and I was like, oh, this is just like tarot. Like it was easy.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like,
you just have to figure out which suit is which. And I always confuse the black ones. I'm like, is it swords or is it
spades or swords, clubs or wands?
Clubs. Okay, that's confusing to me because I would have thought clubs would be swords, but
no. So spades have the point. Spades have
the point. Oh, that meme.
And diamonds are pentacles because of money.
Yes. That one I get, yeah.
And
diamonds
and
hearts I'm good with.
Emotions, yeah. So but if you know how to read tarot cards, if you know these cards, you can read with it. You can pull out. You're missing a court card is all it is, and the major arcana. You're missing a court card and the major arcana. But I mean, other than that, it's just like reading a tarot deck. It's reading a pip deck that we discussed earlier that we don't like, but it's still reading a pip deck.
It's still like in a pinch. Like, I remember when I was learning tarot and I was walking a lot lately, which reminds me we got to get to our walks. But somebody had thrown a deck of cards out of the window of the car, and there was just cards all over the ground. And I was like, oh my God, it's like a free tarot reading. So I just picked up one at random, and I was like, so it was the Joker. I was like, oh my God, as one does.
Well, I hope that was helpful for everyone who was watching.
Oh, I hope I was watching and participating, and I had an amazing time, and I hope everybody else
I mean, I had a good time too.
Yeah, I always enjoy having you on this show. I think that we healed a little bit today. I feel much better about the world, and and thank you for everybody who showed up. If you are enjoying, go ahead and like and subscribe and come back. We're here every Saturday. We have people like Chris. Yes, we have we tend to I put this on Threads the other day. What do we do here? I don't know. It's a thing. Aether and Ink. We do deep dives. We are a storytelling podcast. Indie book magic for mystics and misfits, live every Saturday. I think that about sums it up. So thank you very much, Chris, again for coming on this show. We'll have to have you back we'll have to have you back when episode 2 drops so we can learn what happens to poor Duncan. Mm-hmm. All right. And thank you, everybody.
Bye.
And have a great Saturday. Oh, they make me push the button.
End it.